Oh, Jesus Christ. Okay, it's me. I'm back again, Waifu Belector, and today I want to talk to you all about my thoughts on the highly anticipated and recently released game, Atomic Heart. A game that I have now beaten, and now with my hours and hours of gameplay put in, I'm ready to relay to you all some things about Atomic Heart. What I think is good, what I think is bad, and just some indifferent facts. Alright, let's do it. Now listen, long before release, one look at this game and everyone has the same thought. BioShock. This looks like BioShock. Cool. I'm on the record myself as saying it looked like BioShock meets Wolfenstein. However, now that I've played it, it really isn't either. Don't get me wrong, the DNA of BioShock is all over this game, the first person, the retro future pseudo-horror setting, even the electrocution ability. But when you're actually playing the game, it really has its own feel for better or worse. It doesn't feel like BioShock 1 and 2 because there's way too much shooting and action. But that shooting and action isn't refined enough to feel like BioShock Infinite either, let alone the amazingly tight and impactful feel of something like Wolfenstein 2. What Atomic Heart feels like is if BioShock 1 with its guns that felt horrible to shoot and its half-baked combat attempted to have the BioShock Infinite style combat encounters with Wolfenstein and Doom tributes sprinkled in for basically no reason. Basically, Atomic Heart feels like a community gumbo of campaign-driven first-person shooters, and it both does and doesn't work. The game opens up well both narratively and in gameplay. It lets you know through some early encounters that there will be some fairly challenging content down the pipeline, and it all seems very exciting and promising. And I think Atomic Heart does a really good job of establishing an interesting world all throughout the game. In fact, the story, the world, and the tone might be the strongest aspects of the entire game. It's very fun and intriguing, and it keeps a serious story overall without taking its own tone too seriously at all times. It's actually quite a feat. The game somehow feels light in tone while being simultaneously dramatic in a mostly non-cringy way. It's really the gameplay that, while solid enough, is still very rough around the edges. I mean, just about everything in the game has been made well enough that it's functional and can be enjoyed, but not so well that you'll be able to fall in love with it, even though you'll probably really want to if you're anything like me. This probably first becomes apparent with the feel of the guns. The guns just don't feel very satisfying to shoot. It's a far cry from the amazing feel of gunplay we've gotten in other recent or fairly recent games, be it Doom or Wolfenstein or Apex Legends or the recent Call of Duty Modern Warfare games. Atomic Heart's guns feel almost depressingly lackluster compared to other modern offerings. But having said that, it's not as bad as something like the original BioShock or old shooters like Black Ops 3, games that in the modern era have guns that feel like they basically offer zero feedback, and in the case of BioShock, horrible sound design as well. But yeah, the Atomic Heart guns are just in this strange, I guess it's fine kind of place. And then there's also the dodge. You have a dodge very similar to the way the Doomslayer has a dodge in recent games, except here in Atomic Heart, your dodge kinda sucks. No kidding. You combine the very short distance that the dodge moves you with the wild tracking of some enemy knockdown attacks, and you're left with an evasion tool that is effective about 50% of the time. You start off with 2 dash charges, and you really have to use them both in quick succession if you're planning to get out of the way of anything in this game. And then there's the open world. After a certain amount of hours, you will get introduced to a wide open area that you can go hunt down side objectives and upgrades in, and it's honestly pretty bad. The design of this open world is horrible, not like in a super boring homogeneous way like people say about certain other open worlds. Like, people might say Assassin's Creed or Far Cry games have these super by the books open worlds and things like that. But that's not what Atomic Heart has. Its open world is different. It isn't by the book. It's just terrible. Exploring it makes zero sense. There are enemies literally everywhere. You can't even move without getting spotted and attacked in a game where you're managing ammo. There are surveillance cameras everywhere, and if they see you, they alert all surrounding enemies to your presence, and if you damage an enemy in front of the camera, it will summon more enemies that are stronger, resulting in you getting mobbed and swarmed to an annoying degree. And the cameras are fucking everywhere, I'm not kidding. So you say, just destroy the cameras, right? Well, if you do, a little drone will fly over and repair it in about 5 seconds. And so you say, well, just destroy the drone too. But then another one will show up. And get this, the drones don't just repair the cameras, they'll just repair regular enemies too. It is so easy to get caught in a seemingly endless loop of fighting enemies in this frankly terribly designed open world. Honestly, if you're planning on playing this game, don't even engage with its open world. You can just stick to the critical story path and you'll likely be better off with the linearity. Because every time I had to step into their big expanse, it was just a headache. And I'm aware I'm making this sound like this is the worst game ever. It really isn't. Far from it, in fact. But Atomic Heart is just this thing with some great ideas, or wanting to recreate some great ideas, and just being a bit off in the execution in almost every aspect. Like even the boss fights. They're okay. A lot of the bosses are just entirely too spongy, and you have a shitty dodge, so you just keep getting knocked down. So even when you win, it's not that enjoyable. But I will say some of the late bosses I found to be better than the earlier ones, and most of the individual combat encounters within the linear main game are pretty good, except maybe some of the gauntlet style fights where it's just like, here's a shit ton of enemies, take them all out. Sometimes because of the layout and enemies they might have chosen, that can be annoying. But most of the regular enemy encounters in the story are fun and provide some challenge as well. I played on the standard middle difficulty, by the way, if you were wondering. So anyway, okay, here it is. Atomic Heart is mostly executing things that we've seen executed before and together. So it's not even like it's executing new combinations. And what it's executing, it isn't even executing at the highest level that we've seen. It's doing it at a serviceable level for the most part. You add on to that serviceable game an abysmal excuse for an open world that luckily can be easily ignored, and then add on an entrancing lore and a charming narrative, and I feel like altogether you come out with a pretty good game, I guess. If I had to put a number on it, I'm thinking a 6.5 out of 10. If you have Game Pass, I say go for it, or just buy the 1 month of Game Pass and play it if you don't have Game Pass yet. But if you go the full price route, it's really a fucking coin flip as to if you will end up feeling like it was worth your $70 or not. Anyway, those are my thoughts. That's how I feel about the game. I hope this was helpful on some level, or entertaining, or whatever. Let me know your thoughts. Have you played Atomic Heart? Are you gonna play it? Do you like it? Do you hate it? And as always, jump in the comments and tell me how stupid and wrong I am. But until next time, I am Waifu Selector. I am just a normal guy. I like hentai, and at least we got the hot robot twins out of this. Goodbye.